What about HCR 50? HCR 50, filed by Representative Brandon Creighton of Montgomery County, Texas. Now, I'm not going to get into all the whereas and the results of and all of that stuff right here because it's lengthy. But we're going to get a summation of it right now from Representative Brandon Creighton on 550 KTSA. Representative, welcome to KTSA, and thank you for your time this morning, sir.
Hey, Trey, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
Good. Last week we were speaking with the governor, and he mentioned that he is going to get all behind HCR 50 and behind you, and to see that this passes and that people become more aware of HCR 50 and the 10th Amendment and the movement that's going on, not only in Texas, Brandon, but all across our country. Tell us about it.
Well, Trey, the HCR 50 that we filed is just simply Texas taking a stand from the state legislature against the expansion of the federal government. And we've obviously seen a lot of frustration by our constituents, and we're hearing about it all over Texas.
It's also happening all over in many other states who have written letters and resolutions to the federal government to tell them the laws and the powers are actually reserved for the states except those which the states allow the federal government to have. And I remember a couple of weeks ago during the stimulus debate, Representative Creighton, Vice President Biden said, we've got to get this right. If we don't get this stimulus thing right and get this money out to the states and the states handle it correctly, it'll be very difficult to convince the federal government to give any more money to the states. And I remember thinking and saying at that time on the air, well, where does the federal government think they get their money in the first place? They get it from us, and we ought to turn that around and say to the federal government, unless you get it right, we're not sending you any more money.
Trey, that's exactly right. Just this last week, Earl Devaney, who is chairman of the Economic Stimulus and Accountability Board at the federal level, responsible for developing a website so we can track all this stimulus money and follow the guidelines. He said just Thursday, and he's accountable directly to the vice president, that he hasn't met with the vice president and that he doesn't have an office, he doesn't have phones, he doesn't have computers. He doesn't know exactly how his fellow board members are appointed or who appoints them. And we're here at the state level trying to tackle a $154 billion Texas budget, the ninth largest economy in the world. And we're looking at the federal government telling us how to manage our fiscal affairs. It's just, it couldn't be more backwards.
599-5555, 1-800-299-KTSA if you want to sound off on HCR 50 from Representative Brandon Creighton from Montgomery County, Texas, joining us now on 550 KTSA, which is a movement that is in other states as well. It's being called, Representative Creighton, the 10th Amendment movement, where states are now saying back to the federal government, we're the ones who are actually empowered by the Constitution. We're the ones who hold the power to tell the federal government what to do. Now, what I hear more often from people, though, Representative Creighton, is they feel powerless to actually do anything with the expansion of a centralized government in Washington, D.C. It's very hard to say back to them in any real and meaningful way. I mean, people are reaching out with the Tea Parties and through this 10th Amendment movement. But what else can people actually do that's real world to say to the federal government, get out of our lives and leave us alone?
My first inclination is to handle it at the ballot box, Trey. But I think helping all of these state legislatures, if there are upwards of 40 different state legislatures moving these resolutions, reasserting our 10th Amendment rights, I think it's very important for each citizen to get behind their state legislator to make sure that sentiment's heard loud and clear, because it is a resolution. Obviously, I've been asked, what kind of teeth does it have? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's the proverbial, Texas stomping its, foot to make a demand on the federal level and hopefully arm all of our state's congressmen to say we're in line, the rest of the country's in line, and our states are better equipped to handle these problems than the federal government.
But what is the ultimate goal here, Brandon? Do you hope that the federal government will back down and they'll say, oh, okay, well, we'll just let you guys have your power and keep your money? And I mean, what ultimately could come out of such a resolution?
Ultimately, we hope that the attitude changes at the federal level to not continue to send our own money back to us with strings attached, requiring us to change our proven, successful laws and procedures that we operate on a daily basis with and show success.
Okay.
Texas created 1 million jobs in the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
We balance our budget. We have a surplus. We operate with good, fiscal prudence, and we can't really say the same thing about the federal government yet. It's a little bit backwards for them to be sending us our own money back to the state and requiring us to change proven procedures that we work by every day.
That was exactly what the governor's point was last week. He said all of this money, the stimulus money that was coming for folks who are out of work, expanding the out-of-work rolls in the state of Texas, comes with way too many strings attached, while the other money that he did opt to accept did not have those same strings attached to it. And so he was able to accept those funds easier than he was the other funds, which he told the federal government to jump off on. And he's behind your movement. That's got to be very helpful to you to have somebody like the governor saying, I'm pushing HCR 50 and I want to say to the federal government, here's the jumping off point.
Well, the governor's going to be very helpful with this, and I'm really excited to have him on board with it and him excited about it as well. It's not an easy thing. It's not going to pass easily because it's seen as a front to the current administration in Washington, and it's really, when we filed it 6 weeks ago, we didn't have that intention. We've got laws on the books like No Child Left Behind and the Real ID Act. A lot of these unfunded mandates that, regardless of what administration they were passed during, we want to make sure that the federal level hears loud and clear that there's a reason why the 10th Amendment exists.
It's called HCR 50, the sovereign state of Texas. Brandon Creighton, representative from Montgomery County, Texas. Sir, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much, Trey.